Hello, Daniel here. Just really wanted to put together a video to kind of go over and talk about some of these plants that have been popping up on the property. We've been on this property for coming on a little over 2 years now, and been kind of trying to let it grow itself back in, let some spaces kind of go natural and see what pops up. And that's come with good and bad results, because we're having natives pop up, which is great, but we're also having invasives pop up. So that's kind of what this whole thing's about. I really wanted to go over and talk about some of the things that have been popping up and what they are, and what I'm planning to do to try and get rid of some of them, and what I'm planning to do to try and cultivate some of them. So yeah, let's get into it. I should probably preface this for those of you that don't know. We live in northeastern Tennessee, Jonesboro to be specific, zone 6A, 6B, something like that. So we kind of have a little microclimate here on the property. It's about 3/4 of an acre also. We kind of are down in a gully. It's totally surrounded by trees. You can see all the foliage behind me here. And there's a real big drainage back this way that comes down and collects, and so we get a lot of water on this property, like a lot. Actually to the point where it's been tearing up the property, and I'm having to mitigate and kind of redirect the water, but that'll be a whole nother thing down the line. But yeah, the first thing I really wanted to talk about is something that I've realized is probably the biggest problem on my property right now. And for those of you who live on the East Coast, some of you are probably very aware of what I'm about to mention, and it is Japanese stiltgrass. Oh man, Japanese stiltgrass. I wish I could go back in time to when I first bought this property and know and understand what that is and what it was and what it will do if you let it. And it's kind of gotten out of hand here. It's all over my property. I've been looking up online what to do. A lot of people are saying use herbicides. We tend to try and steer away from chemicals. We like to be as organic as possible with the things that we do here on the property. But the only other option I'm seeing as of right now is hand pulling. And with the amount of property that I have and the amount of coverage I have, that is unrealistic. So I'm going to do that in the places where I can and I can stand to do it, but ideally I find another solution. I'm going to try burning. I do a lot of smothering on the property. There was a lot of grass when we first moved on this property, and I'm not a big fan of turf grass, so we've been killing it off everywhere we can with tarps. So yeah, I'm going to try seeing if that's effective. I've got a big pile right here I'm about to show you that has a bunch of stuff from a tree that fell, and it's just been taken over by stiltgrass, so it's pretty hard to weed eat it or anything like that. I did see that if you knock it down before it goes to flower, that's probably most ideal, so then that way it doesn't reproduce, but it does stay dormant in the soil for up to 5 years. So that's something that if you're not vigilant about it, it can be a problem. And I'm guessing that was the problem here at one point, because this property was pretty neglected when we got to it. So let's get right into it here. This Japanese stiltgrass. Here it is. For those of you that don't know, it kind of looks like a really thin bamboo. And that's kind of when I realized it was a problem. I was like, man, that kind of looks like bamboo. And if you're, again, in the southeast, people planted bamboo all over the place, that can become a problem. So looking at it, you can tell it's got these kind of pointy leaves on both sides. Comes to a point, and it's got the real telltale is it's got the shiny, see that shiny strip down the middle. And I've been knocking it down all over the place here. I had a whole bunch of it all back here, all around these trees, around that black lotus there, which is something that's popped up. I'm pretty stoked. That's going to be a tree. It's coming up. But yeah, this is a problem. So with this one, since it's all intermingled in that, I'm going to attempt to burn this once I kind of get the perimeter a little safer. I think I'm gonna try and burn this pile here just to try and get rid of that and see what it does. There is some other things in there I don't really want to lose. Like I've got a bunch of wine berries that pop up over here. It's kind of like a wild raspberry. But I mean, all that stuff will come back. Ideally, I'm trying to suppress the issue currently. So that's all I can do on this property right now is try and get to the things that are a problem. Sorry about the traffic. I live on a pretty busy road. Yeah, try and get to the things that are a problem now, and then we can reset and try and bring back the native plants. So yeah, this Japanese stiltgrass was actually brought in from China. They call it packing grass because they used to pack porcelain in China and stuff like that, I believe, with this stuff. And then when we would import them, they would just throw it on the ground, and then this is what we end up with. Now, I did just find out right as I was filming this, I was kind of double checking some facts, and I just realized that this stuff does host endangered butterflies in some areas. So I do need to be aware of that. Apparently, I didn't know that until literally just now, going to double check that I was right, that it came from China, because it's called Japanese stiltgrass, and you know, it's a little bit confusing, but yeah, so I do still plan to remove as much as I can, as long as I don't feel like I see anything with the butterflies. I don't know how to identify that. Maybe somebody can comment and let me know. This will be a process. I'm sure it's not going anywhere for quite a while. This is going to be a whole thing. So maybe some people can enlighten me. But as far as I can tell, this is an invasive. For the most part, it's bad. And I'm going to attempt to get rid of it. And I literally have it almost over half of my property has Japanese stiltgrass on it. So yeah, that's that for now. Coming to more of a positive here, there is some cool stuff that's popping up. We've got these perennial peas. They like to come up. They're really beautiful. Nice, beautiful flowers. They kind of like vine out and go place to place. They really like to grow over here on the road. We've got tons of chicory. This is before they recut and mowed all this, which kind of bummed me out, but you know, this really needed to be cut. Back to the water issues. We get water that comes in right through here. It just literally has destroyed my driveway, so I'm glad they did that, but it's a bummer to see all the chicory gone, because this whole thing was chicory before, but it'll come back. And yeah, the chicory is really cool. We've got brown eye Susan. I think that's that one right there. Looks like maybe that might be brown eye or black eye. I always get them confused. I think that one would be black eye Susan. We get yarrow. We get Queen Anne's lace. Here's some Queen Anne's lace, because Queen Anne has furry legs. Probably can't see it, but yeah, there's furry. See the little fuzzies? Come on. Let me get that to focus there. Yeah. See, Queen Anne has furry legs. Look at these cool white flowers when these open up. I think this one's kind of past its prime, but see what else we got on. Oh, we get clover, obviously. Lots of native clover. Love that. Love the clover. Here's some Queen Anne's lace that's still open. Beautiful. These like starburst kind of patterns here. Really cool. We get this wild strawberry. I've heard it's edible, but it's not very tasteless. I haven't tried it myself, or it's not very tasty. I haven't tried it myself yet. All right, back to another invasive. You probably saw when I was walking around the ditch up front. We have mimosa trees. They do flower really pretty. I think the leaves look kind of cool, but the problem is they're invasive. and they will spread. This one is literally half a season, and it's already turned into, look at the stalk on this thing. It's already all over the place here. This whole thing is that one plant. And again, my ignorance, I didn't know, just let it grow. I thought it was cool. So I have to take care of those. I've got them all over the place. They do fix the soil with nitrogen apparently, but they will spread and become an issue, and we're really striving to try and get rid of all the invasives we can on our property to do our part with that. So those will have to go. Here's another one that's just kind of popped up, started growing out of my foundation here, so I'm gonna have to, probably gonna end up transplanting this one because these things get pretty big. Is this rose mallow common hibiscus here. I'm just kind of past the prime of the flowers on these ones, but we got some new buds forming there. And I've had probably about 4 of these pop up on the property so far. This is the biggest one. I saw it come up last season and just kind of let it do its thing, and it's gotten pretty big so far. Might be kind of a pain in the butt to move, but I really want to move it out somewhere where it can really grow out. But yeah, these things can get pretty big, and they have beautiful white and red flowers. I believe they call them rose mallow for this specific one. So yeah, that's pretty cool to have something ornamental like that just kind of pop up. Okay, in this corner of the yard, it's pretty shady. We've been starting to get some really cool mosses starting to pop up. I'm really trying to encourage that as much as I can. Amongst the mosses, of course, more Japanese stiltgrass, but also get this winter creeper. The winter creeper. This stuff is a bear. Ugh. It goes and goes. It is an invasive. It's not cool. It looks pretty nice. It's another one of these ones that were imported as a ornamental and has since become an issue. So now, unfortunately, I'm ripping this stuff out. I'll put it over there to burn later. And I'm gonna have to damage a bunch of this moss because it's just so deeply rooted. I mean, I got all this Japanese stilt grass in here too, so it's a bummer because this moss is starting to look really good. Maybe if somebody has a suggestion of how I can save the moss but get rid of the other stuff other than hand picking, which I think is my only option. But even hand pulling is damaging the moss. I know it'll come back, but I did notice, so on another side of the property I have killed off a bunch of grass and I pulled back the tarps. The only thing that remained was the moss. There's been a couple things pop up since, but really the moss has been the only thing that stayed since then, so I might try that here. It's going to be kind of hard because this is right next to Leo's play area. My son Leo, his play area. Been working on this thing for him here, but it might be kind of hard to keep this covered, but I do intend on taking the majority of this upper section up here that you see. There's a lot of stilt grass up there. That whole hillside up there is stilt grass. And covering it. I do intend on trying to cover, kill. I don't think tilling's the answer, but I want to try and take a majority of this grass and maybe mulch it. Put mulch over top of it. I really just don't want grass. I don't like the maintenance. I'd rather encourage other things. So yeah, I'll probably end up mulching a majority of that. Maybe saving some grassy sections down in here just for the kids to play on. Maybe mulch around his thing, but yeah. So yeah, I got this stuff here that's popped up. This is Indian tobacco, they call it. Pukeweed, some is called, not pokeweed, pukeweed. The scientific name for it I'm going to butcher, but it is Lobila inflata, which I'm probably not saying right. But amongst all the stiltgrass, I had this nice little section here that has clover starting to pop up. It's got this Indian tobacco. Yeah, I'll take it. So we're gonna try and cultivate and encourage that. So maybe it can challenge the stiltweed. I doubt it will, but I'm just trying to keep it native best I can. Okay, so for those of you that are wondering, how am I going about identifying? How am I going about learning about these things? Because I'm obviously not a horticulturalist or a plant scientist or anything like that. I'm just a guy who owns some property trying to learn about the plants on it. I use Google Lens. It's really helpful right now. It's free. Anybody can go on there, do an image search of anything. It even does if you're having something going wrong, like our tomatoes were getting blight, and I just used it and looked at it and told me, oh, your tomatoes are getting blight. It's really helpful. I think it's really important for all of us who own property, who are trying to steward these pieces of land, to try and identify things as much as possible, try and learn about these things as much as possible, because it's just power into our hands. We're living in a day and age where you have the capability to do that like never before. So we should try and be as proactive as possible about learning and encouraging and discouraging the correct plants. So yeah, check it out. It's not obviously not sponsored by that in any way. I just find it extremely helpful right now. Okay, now I'd like to take a second to talk about the thing that I thought was my biggest problem, and it's still not great, but it's definitely, I don't find it as troubling as the stiltgrass. Old Creepin' Charlie in the mint family, something that came here again as an ornamental ground cover. If you know anything about mint, it just goes if you let it. And again, I was not educating myself on these things before when I first bought this property, and I just thought, oh, that looks kind of cool, I'll let it go. And now my entire property right here, this whole section of the lawn is Creepin' Charlie. It has made its way all through everything, and I don't know how to effectively take care of that either. It's another thing where I feel like I'm just gonna have to burn and smother the ground as much as I can everywhere, and then put back a ground cover that's native to try and combat it. That's about the only thing I know to do. Maybe if you have some suggestions, but we all know if it's in the mint family that it's just gonna go. So all we can do is cut it. At least it's not as aggressive as the Japanese stiltgrass, which can get, you saw up there at that other part on the property, it can get 3-4 feet tall. And I also forgot to mention that each one of the stalks on the Japanese stiltgrass, here, let's take a look at that actually. Coming back to the Japanese stiltgrass, got a whole bunch of it popping up next to my compost here. Oh, this one's starting to flower. That's not good. So it looks like it's time to be proactive. Uh-oh, this is a new occurrence here. But yeah, the Japanese stiltgrass has the capability to produce up to 1,000 seeds per one of these. Like I mentioned before, they can stay dormant in the ground for 5 years. So that's a problem. And I've got a lot of it. All up there, all through all that. All right, if you made it this far, thanks, appreciate it. If you have any suggestions, or if I misspoke on anything, or if there's something that you may have saw when I'm skimming around that need to bring to my attention or anything, I would really appreciate just leaving a comment, something like that, just to let me know. Because like I said, I'm still learning. I'm kind of doing this because I want to learn as much as possible. And there's people out there who may know more than me. Probably most people out there know more than me on this stuff. But I think it's important. This is really important for all of us to educate ourselves and do what we can to do better, because the current system of how we handle our lawns and how we handle our properties is just, I just don't think it's where it needs to be. I think we're stuck in the past in a lot of ways when it comes to having a traditional lawn. I really am a big advocate of planting natives, planting edibles, planting things that help the environment as opposed to just having a status symbol on the ground. So if you've never heard of anything like this, I'll link a video in the description to a pretty good overview of why lawns are bad. So yeah, just hope that you guys take a second to look at that if you don't know, and I hope that you may have learned something from this potentially, and this isn't just me talking to myself. So thanks. Catch you next time.